often said, if our lake stayed up year round, holy cow, would these fish have had the opportunity to use all that? What?
In this episode of the TNCBA vlog, we're on Douglas Lake for the last TNCBA regular event of the season. We're going to talk about some of the things we did in practice and how we followed those fish in their migration back in the creeks, locating some fish on some points. But then we're going to talk about how we made some changes on tournament day as the water began to muddy up and it was rising on us quickly. So stick around as we talk about what we did to catch our fish on Douglas Lake. Things came together very slowly for us in practice. We started the day out just up above Dandridge in a creek and found lots of bait, found some fish that we marked on the graph, but we just could not get anything going on with those fish. So we ended up moving down the lake towards Muddy Creek and began working in the backs of pockets and just working our way out towards the main lake looking for active fish. Luckily, with some help from some friends that were down there on the lake that day, we got put onto a little bit of a crankbait bite on some of these secondary points. This fish right here turns out to be a white bass on an Alabama rig, but we're just slowly putting little things together as we go. Those fish weren't necessarily all the way back in the backs with that bait, and the fish that were there just were not actively feeding. In this segment right here, we've moved back up the lake just a little ways towards Dandridge. We're fishing some secondary points, and I catch a small fish on a crankbait, but again, it's bites that are keying us in on location of those fish. And as you're going to see here in our last segment of this practice video, we're actually going to get bit in an area on a spinnerbait right here on a secondary point, and this area is going to play key role in our tournament day, and we're actually going to catch the majority of our fish out of there. So that's just the way practice works out. You put little pieces together and eventually you're going to build up to something bigger in the tournament. So to set up conditions here on tournament day, you can see that we're full post frontal. We've had an extremely cold night. There's no clouds in the sky. During the week we had tons of rain. The lake actually came up 4 to 4.5 feet between last Saturday when we were practicing and the Saturday here for the tournament. So what we start out doing is we returned to one of the creeks where we found a lot of bait. We're following the creek channel back. Those fish have really dropped down into that creek channel where it's been cold. The bait's kind of pulled down into that creek channel. And here I'm throwing an A-rig. This is not a keeper bass. This turns out to be a white bass. But we continue to follow this creek channel up, and we run into some breaking fish. We weren't able to get any of those fish to commit to top water. There were some largemouth and some white bass mixed in. So once we worked to the back and couldn't get anything going, we kind of worked our way back out with crankbaits. One thing to note on this first keeper that we catch for the day is the location of this fish and its relation to sunlight. You can't quite see it here in this shot, but Dad catches this one on a crankbait off of a boat ramp. So a hard bottom in direct sunlight. And again, after a cold night like that with some of this muddy water, that hard bottom is going to absorb a lot of that sunlight and that warmth and heat up faster than everything else around it. So that's important to key in on those cold mornings. So once we worked through the majority of that first creek in the morning, we kind of ran away from that muddy water, trying to look for some cleaner water, thinking maybe that would be the ticket. And as you can see here in this clip, I'm going into the tackle box, kind of running through some things in my head that have happened in the past that we've been down on Douglas Lake around Black Friday, around Thanksgiving, and had a lot of luck with a chili crawl square bill. So I pick up that 1.5 in the chili crawl color I tied on, and we kind of beat around in these clear water areas. We even leave this area to move on down the lake towards Muddy Creek to get into some cleaner water just to see if that's the ticket, and try a few different things. So after spending some time in that clear water with no luck, we moved back up above Dandridge, between Dandridge and Swans, and you can see here how much dirtier this water is compared to what we were fishing down in Muddy Creek. So we moved back up here, we started getting super shallow, and we're actually right now running back up to that spot where we caught the better quality fish on the spinnerbait in practice. And we're going to pull into this area, and basically from the get-go, as soon as we pull in there, we're going to get right up tight on the bank, throwing a crankbait, throwing a spinnerbait, and those fish had just followed that water up. As that water came up, they were just inching up with it, and with that sunshine beating down on these rocks and that muddy water starting to warm up, those fish were just right there on the edge of the bank, and they were starting to feed. And we turn a bad day into a pretty good day fairly quickly. We have one fish in the boat at this point. It's after 12 o'clock, check-in's 3:30, and just in one or two little runs through this little cut, we're going to get our limit and actually start to cull. while the quality was certainly lacking for us here on this day, we were still able to make those adjustments, coming back to the muddy water, getting up shallow with that square bill crankbait, that spinner bait, and taking a day where we had just one keeper in the box after noon, and being able to put a limit together and cull a couple times, and put together a decent limit, and salvage a day that could have gone very poorly. It's all about constantly changing with those conditions and being open-minded, especially when you go from fishing one weekend to the next.